A lie is easier to carry when part of it is true. That was how I carried mine for 14 years. It was true that Adrian Harrow was absent. It was true that his daughter, Lila, learned to wait for him before she learned how not to. It was true that I was the one who held her when he sent gifts instead of coming home. All of that was true. The lie was what I did with it. For years I called it motherhood. I called it sacrifice. I called it protecting a child from a father who loved her too weakly to show up. Other people believed me. Lila believed me. Worst of all, for a long time I almost believed myself. But truth survives beneath even the softest lies. It waits under family photographs, behind closed bedroom doors, inside birthday cards signed by assistants. It learns the shape of a house. And eventually it finds a way out. By the time everyone understood what I had done, I had already spent years pretending I had only saved a little girl. I had saved her. I had also used her. That is the part no explanation can make clean. I grew up in a family that never had to raise its voice to make me feel small. My brother Julian was the heir. My sister Celeste was the beautiful one, the polished one, the daughter my mother brought into every room as if she were a finished product. I was the pleasant daughter, the useful daughter, the one who remembered names, smiled at dinners, wore the dresses chosen for her, and understood early that wanting too much made people uncomfortable. No one abused me. That would have been easier to explain. My loneliness had silk curtains around it. By 17, I had become excellent at being overlooked. I knew how to stand beside conversations without entering them. I knew how to laugh without making anyone turn. I knew how to become exactly as visible as other people found convenient. Then I met Adrian Harrow properly at a charity dinner. He was older than me, already married, already important in the way men become important when money and confidence gather around them. His wife Clara was with him that night. I remember her green dress. I remember how simple it was. I remember the way Adrian looked at her when she laughed, as if some guarded part of him had stepped into sunlight. That evening my father made a joke at my expense. It was not cruel enough to stop the room. That was the problem. He called me never the strategic one. And people laughed because he smiled while saying it. Julian did not look up. Celeste gave me a glance that said, "Do not make this awkward." So I smiled too. Later I stepped into the hallway to breathe. I was pretending to admire an ugly painting when Adrian came out after taking a call. For a second I thought he would pass without speaking. Instead he stopped beside me and looked at the painting. "Terrible, isn't it?" he said. I almost laughed. "It's expensive," I answered. "That doesn't answer the question. It answers the only question people here care about." He looked at me then. Not through me. At me. "People who underestimate you usually do it because they're too lazy to look closely," he said. Then he nodded toward the ballroom. "Don't let them make you smaller than you are." He did not flirt. He did not touch me. He did not make the moment into something it was not. He simply went back to his wife. For him, I think it was nothing. For me, it became the first warm thing I had been given without having to earn it. That was where the danger began. For 3 years, I loved Adrian Harrow quietly. I did not call it love then. I called it admiration, friendship, familiarity, anything but what it was. Our families moved through the same rooms. Charity dinners, museum openings, holiday receptions, summer gatherings where rich people pretended not to discuss money while doing nothing else. Adrian was usually there with Clara. I learned to greet them both. First, speaking to Clara made me feel safe. If I liked her, if I smiled at her, if I admired the easy way she held Adrian's arm, then whatever I felt for him could remain harmless. The terrible thing was that I did like her. Clara was kind without turning kindness into a performance. Once, when my mother corrected the way I stood for a photograph, Clara slipped her arm through mine and said, "Come rescue me. I'm trapped between 2 women discussing curtains." She made it sound like I was helping her. That was Clara's gift. She saved people without making them feel saved. So I stayed near the edge of Adrian's life. Not close enough to be accused. Not far enough to be free. He would ask whether my mother had chosen my dress again. I would say, "Unfortunately." I would ask whether he had survived another speech from my father. He would answer, "Barely." It was small. Small enough to excuse. small enough to keep. Then Clara died giving birth to Lila. I need that said plainly. When Clara died, I did not feel hope. My first feeling was horror. The funeral was everything funerals in families like ours always are. Black clothes, white flowers, quiet voices, grief made respectable. But the next day, when the performance had ended, Adrian's house looked abandoned by meaning. Lila was upstairs with a nurse, too small to understand that she had entered the world through a wound no one knew how to close. I saw Adrian standing in the nursery doorway. His shirt was wrinkled. He had not shaved. He looked at the crib as if it contained both the last thing Clara had given him and the first thing he did not know how to bear. He did not step inside. So I did. I picked Lila up because she was crying and no one else seemed able to move. She was frighteningly small. Her hands opened and closed against my dress. She did not know me. She only knew someone warm had lifted her. Adrian watched from the doorway. "She settles with you," he said. It was a simple sentence. It should not have mattered. But after years of wanting him to see me, even his broken gratitude felt like light. In the beginning, I helped because there was a motherless child and a grieving man drowning in silence. I brought food Adrian did not eat. I answered messages he ignored. I learned where the bottles were kept, which blankets Lila preferred, how to tell hunger from fear. And yes, in the beginning that was kindness. But grief leaves doors open that should have stayed closed. Adrian began to call when Lila would not stop crying. The nurse asked whether I was coming by. His housekeeper started setting a place for me without being told. My mother noticed before I admitted there was anything to notice. "You've been very good to that family," she said one evening. In my family, good rarely meant kind. It meant useful. Soon everyone around us began using soft words for what they wanted. Stability, continuity, a mother figure, a sensible arrangement. No one said alliance. No one said influence. No one said that Adrian Harrow's company was becoming too important for my family to remain outside his life. And I did not say love. I told myself Lila needed me. That was true. I told myself Adrian needed me. That was also true, though not in the way I wanted. By the time Adrian asked me to marry him, I had already learned the rhythm of his house. I knew when Lila woke. I knew which hallway lights stayed on. I knew Adrian worked late because darkness gave him permission not to enter the nursery. He did not ask with romance. He asked with exhaustion. "Lila knows you," he said. "She trusts you." He did not say "I love you." I heard "I need you." And because I had wanted warmth for so long, I let myself believe need could become love if I stood close enough to it. So I said yes. Our marriage made sense to everyone except the part of me that still wanted to be chosen. Adrian was kind to me. That almost made it worse. He never promised a love he could not give. He thanked me. He trusted me. He gave me authority over the house, over Lila's routines, over the soft emergencies of childhood. He asked what Lila needed. He rarely asked what I wanted. For the first years, I tried to become perfect. I learned everything about Lila. She hated carrots unless they were sliced so thin they nearly disappeared. She would not sleep if the closet door was open, even a little. When she was 4, she decided the moon followed our car because it was lonely. When she was 5, she cried for nearly an hour after stepping on a snail in the garden. At 6, she began asking questions that made adults lie badly. Did my first mom like rain? Yes, I told her, though I did not know. I think she did. Does Dad get sad when he looks at me? I brushed her hair slowly. Sometimes. Were you lonely before me? That one frightened me. Yes, I said after a long moment. I think I was. She turned around and touched my cheek with her small hand. Then I'm glad I came. No one else heard it. No Adrian in the doorway. No family member watching. No guest to praise how well I mothered another woman's child. Just Lila giving me something I had spent my whole life trying to earn. That was when she became dangerous to my lies. Because I had entered that house wanting Adrian to need me. But children do not stay symbols. They become people. Lila became the child who crawled into my bed during storms and whispered, "Can I stay until the sky stops yelling?" She became the little girl who searched the audience during school plays and smiled only after finding me. She became the child who called me mom without hesitation, as if the word had always belonged to both of us. I loved her. That was what made the lie survivable and unforgivable. Adrian loved Lila from behind glass. That is the fairest way I can say it. He was not indifferent. Indifference would have made him easier to hate. He watched her with pain in his face. He kept her drawings. He remembered strange details and forgot important days. He sent thoughtful gifts, expensive gifts, gifts that proved he knew what she liked and still did not understand what she needed. He loved her. He was also absent. When Lila was 8, he missed her school recital and sent a silver music box the next morning. When she was 10, he missed her fever because a building inspection had gone wrong. He came home at midnight and stood outside her door for 15 minutes, then left a stuffed rabbit on the chair beside her bed. When she was 12, I sent her to his study with a question about an old building for her history project. She stood outside the door for nearly 10 minutes, clutching her notebook. She knocked once. Too softly. He did not hear. She came back upstairs and said, "It's okay. I'll ask you." I should have told her to knock again. Instead, I opened my arms. That was how it kept happening. Adrian left a silence. Lila stepped into it. I pulled her back before it swallowed her. And every time I did, she learned one more reason to reach for me first. I told myself I was protecting her. Most of the time I was. But protection can become possession if you are not careful. And I had never been as careful as I believed. I tried to bring Adrian closer to her. I reminded him of events. I placed her drawings on his desk. I told him when she was pretending not to care. Sometimes he tried. Once, when Lila was 13, he cleared an entire afternoon to take her to an architecture exhibit. She spent the morning changing outfits and pretending she was not excited. At 2 o'clock, Adrian received a call about a collapsed deal. He promised he would be only an hour late. He came home after dinner. Lila had left the ticket on the kitchen counter. He picked it up like it was evidence at a crime scene. "I'm trying," he said to me. "I know," I answered. And I did know. That was the problem. Adrian's failures were not empty. They were full of grief, guilt, fear, and cowardice. He loved Lila, but every time she looked too much like Clara, he retreated into work. Every time he disappointed her, his shame became so heavy that he avoided her again. I saw the pattern. I used it. Not at first in some grand villainous way. I used it in small choices. I answered Lila before he could. I translated his absences into softer language. I told him to give her space when what he needed to do was knock on the door and let her be angry. I became the person who understood both of them. Then I became the person standing between them. By the time Lila's 16th birthday approached, the house had been lying for years. Adrian believed gifts could buy time. Lila believed wanting less would hurt less. I believed being the one who comforted her made me innocent. That birthday broke all three lies. Lila asked Adrian herself if he would come. I did not know she had gone to his study until she came back with a careful expression on her face. Hopeful, but trying to hide it from anyone who might punish her for wanting too much. "He said he'll come," she told me. My hand stopped over the flowers I was arranging. "Did he?" She nodded. "He promised." There are moments when the future opens in two directions and, for 1 second, you can see both. In one, Adrian came home on time. He sat beside his daughter. He watched her blow out 16 candles. He proved that he could still show up before a disaster forced him to. In the other, he failed. And everything I had been too cowardly to confess would finally break open in a way no one could ignore. I smiled because Lila was watching. "That's wonderful," I said. The party was supposed to begin at 7:30. That was the time Adrian had been told. That was the time his assistant had placed on his calendar. 3 days before the birthday, I called the planner and moved the guest arrival to 6:30. "Should I send an updated notice to Mr. Harrow's office?" she asked. "No," I said too quickly. Then I softened my voice. "I'll handle Adrian. His schedule is complicated." It was such an easy sentence. Men like Adrian had complicated schedules. Wives like me handled them. On the day of the party, Lila woke early. She tried not to look excited, which made her seem younger than 16. She checked the weather twice. She changed earrings 3 times, then chose the smallest pair because she said they felt less desperate. I almost stopped then. She stood in front of the mirror, touching her hair. Do you think Dad will like it? There was no accusation in her question. Only a child still willing to offer her father a version of herself and hope he would notice. Yes, I said. He will. By late afternoon, the house filled with flowers, music, caterers, and girls arriving with bright voices. Lila smiled. She laughed. But every few minutes her eyes moved toward the driveway. At 6:43, Adrian texted. How is she? I looked across the garden. Lila was standing near the cake table, pretending to listen to her friends. Every few seconds her eyes returned to the driveway. I wrote, trying to be patient. At 7:16 he texted again. Almost done. Tell her I'm coming. I could still save it. One sentence. Come now. She needs you now. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I wrote, just finish what you need to. I'll keep her calm. The reply sent. Across the garden, Lila smiled at something one of the girls said. It was a careful smile. Practiced one. I had seen Adrian teach her that smile. That night I used it. The cake came out at 7:45. Lila's friends gathered around. The candles shook in the evening air. Lila looked toward the driveway one last time. The chair at the head of the table was empty. Everyone sang. Lila smiled through it. That was worse than crying. Her smile was careful, already forgiving him before the candles had gone out. When she leaned forward, her eyes were wet. That was the moment I understood I had not exposed a wound. I had pressed my hand into it. She did not cry until later. The guests left. The garden lights remained on, making the empty tables look staged for a life no one had lived properly. Lila sat on the edge of her bed in her blue dress, holding herself very still. He promised, she said. I know. Maybe something happened. I wanted to take the excuse she offered and hand it back like mercy. Instead I said nothing. Her face changed. He didn't even call me. I knew his messages were on my phone. I had not shown them to her. I put my arms around her when she began to cry. I'm here, I whispered. The words came out before I could stop them. I will always choose you. She clung to me. And for one terrible second, I let myself feel like the one who had saved her. Then Adrian came home. I heard his steps in the hall. Slow, heavy, stopping outside Lila's door. I knew he was there. Lila did not. He did not knock. Of all the things I arranged, I had not arranged that. That failure belonged to him. But I used it. I held Lila tighter. I let the silence outside the door become another answer. I let Adrian place something on the floor and walk away. When his footsteps faded, Lila cried harder. There are things a person does once and spends the rest of her life still doing. That night was mine. After Lila's 16th birthday, the house stopped pretending. Lila stopped coming down for breakfast. When I brought food to her room, she thanked me in a voice so careful it hurt to hear. She did not rage. She did not demand answers. She did not even ask whether Adrian had called. Adrian tried in the way Adrian tried. He sent messages. He bought gifts. He asked whether she would see him. Once I found him standing outside her bedroom with his hand raised, unable to knock. I could have told him the truth. Go in. Let her hate you. Let her say everything. Do not send another gift. Do not make your shame more important than her pain. Instead I said, give her space. It was not entirely wrong. That was how I could say it. 2 weeks later I told Adrian we needed to separate. We were in the sitting room. Lila was upstairs. He looked exhausted, older than he had any right to look. She cannot keep living like this, I said. Like what? Like a child being trained to accept disappointment as love. He flinched. I kept my voice calm because calm women are harder to dismiss. You think you missed one birthday, I said. You did not. You taught her year after year to lower her expectations until a present at the door felt like proof she mattered. Marissa. No. Listen to me. She has learned to smile when she is abandoned. She has learned to thank you for objects when what she wanted was you. She has learned to make herself smaller so your guilt has room to breathe. Every word contained truth. That was why it cut so well. Adrian sat very still. I love her, he said. I know, I answered. But the way you love her is hurting her. That was the sentence that broke him. And the worst part was that I believed it. The divorce followed faster than I expected. On paper, everything looked clean. Adrian was emotionally absent. I was Lila's primary caregiver. The birthday was the final rupture. The main house was necessary for Lila's stability. Every sentence contained a fact. Every fact had been arranged. My family became attentive during the legal process in a way they had never been when I was simply lonely. Julian asked about property. Celeste asked about leverage. My mother asked what story we were telling. No one asked whether Lila was sleeping. That should have warned me. Instead, I let them help. I received the house, a large settlement, monthly support, and control over most of Lila's daily life. Adrian kept his company, but he conceded too much because guilt had always made him generous in the wrong direction. People called me brave. They said I had chosen Lila over comfort, which was strange because I had kept both. They called me the mother who stayed. The phrase followed me everywhere until even Lila used it once, half asleep with her head in my lap. You stayed, she whispered. I stroked her hair until she slept. Then I sat in the dark, unable to move. Because I had stayed. But I had also built the fire and called myself shelter. For a while I thought I had one. Then I learned there are victories that rot in your hands. After the divorce, there was no Adrian in the house to blame. No late footsteps in the hall. No empty chair waiting to accuse him. No gift boxes to make me look like the better parent by contrast. There was only Lila. And me. She still trusted me. She still curled beside me on the sofa. She still came to my room when the world felt too loud. But sometimes when she thought I was not looking, she stared at her phone. And nothing, I told myself. To him I knew. Adrian started writing letters. Not emails. Not messages through assistants. Actual letters written in his own hand. The first ones were awkward and too formal. The later ones were worse because they were better. He wrote about Clara. About grief. About fear. About how looking at Lila sometimes felt like being forgiven and punished at the same time. He did not ask her to forgive him. He did not mention money. He did not send gifts. Only apology. That frightened me more than any present ever had. A gift meant he still did not understand. A handwritten apology was harder to turn into evidence against him. First I hid the letters. Then I began letting a few through. Not because I was noble. I was not. I simply understood that the truth would not stay buried forever. Maybe Adrian would look closely. Maybe a former staff member would speak. Maybe Lila would grow old enough to ask the right questions. And when that day came, what would destroy her most would not be the money, the divorce, or even the birthday. It would be me. So I did another unforgivable thing and called it mercy. I began making her love me less. When Lila called from another room, I heard her. I still let my teacup cool in my hands before I answered. Mom. That word had once opened every door in me. Now I made myself wait. I answered more slowly. I stopped rushing into every sadness as if I could still be the cure for a wound I had helped create. To anyone else, it might have looked like I was giving her independence. But I knew better. I was loosening the knot she had tied around me. Her 17th birthday was the cruelest thing I did after the first. She did not want a party. She wanted dinner at home, just the two of us. Just me. Those words should have stopped me. Instead, they showed me how tightly she was still holding on. There was a dinner with my family that night. I could have left. I should have left. I sat in a room full of people asking about property, reputation, settlement terms, Adrian's next move. Everything except the girl waiting at home with a cake for two. At 7, I told myself I would leave soon. At 7:30, I gripped my glass until my fingers hurt. At 8, I understood exactly whose absence I was imitating. Still, I stayed 10 minutes longer. When I finally returned, Lila was sitting in the kitchen beside a small cake she had not cut. 2 plates. 2 forks. 1 candle burned almost to the base. She looked up and smiled. That was worse than tears. It's okay, she said. I wanted to tell her to be angry. I wanted to beg her not to forgive me so quickly. I wanted to say, please love me less. It will hurt less later. Instead, I said, I'm sorry. She nodded as if apologies were enough when they came from me. That night, I left Adrian's newest letter on the hall table. In the morning it was gone. Adrian found the truth because finally he did what he should have done years earlier. He looked closely. It began with the planner. I learned later that he had called her about a different matter entirely. Something about an old invoice, a charity event, a donation record. Then he saw the birthday file. The original time. The changed arrival schedule. The note that said Mrs. Harrow would personally handle Mr. Harrow's update. From there he found the messages. Mine. His. The ones I had kept but not destroyed. I could have deleted them. For years, I told myself the fact that I did not meant something decent still lived in me. Perhaps that was true. Perhaps I simply wanted to be caught by someone else because I was too cowardly to confess. He came to the house on a Thursday afternoon. Lila was 17 then. Almost 18. Old enough to understand too much and still young enough for understanding to ruin her. I knew the moment I saw Adrian that something had changed. He did not look angry. That frightened me more. He looked clear. Where is she? He asked. Adrian. Where is Lila? I stepped aside. Lila came down the stairs wearing a gray sweater and socks, her hair tied messily behind her head. She looked between us and immediately became still. What happened? Adrian did not answer at first. He held a folder in one hand. His knuckles were pale. Lila, he said, and his voice broke on her name. I need you to know something before anyone else tells you a softer version. My body went cold. Adrian, don't. He looked at me then. For years I had wanted that. Adrian Harrow looking at me and seeing everything. Now that he did, there was nowhere left to hide. She changed the time of your 16th birthday, he said. Lila blinked. What? She moved the party earlier and didn't tell me. I texted her. I told her I was coming. She told me to finish what I needed to do. Lila turned to me. I saw the child she had been flash across her face. The girl in the blue dress. The girl holding herself still on the edge of the bed. The girl who had clung to me because I was the only person left in the room. Tell me that isn't true, she said. My mouth opened. Nothing came out. Her fingers tightened around the stair rail. Tell me Dad is wrong. Tell me someone misunderstood. Tell me there's some version of this where you didn't know. I wanted that version too. More than anything, I wanted a kinder truth. One where I had only been foolish. One where love had made me clumsy, not cruel. But there was no kinder truth left. I knew, I said. Lila flinched as if I had touched her. Adrian stepped forward, but she lifted one hand without looking at him. No, she said. I want to hear it from her. Her. Not Mom. The word landed quietly. That made it worse. Lila came down the last step. You changed the time? Yes. You got his messages? Yes. You knew he was coming? I closed my eyes. Yes. A sound left her then. Not a sob. Not a scream. Something smaller. Something made by a child who had finally found the shape of a monster and realized it had been holding her at night. Why? She asked. There were 1,000 answers. Loneliness. Jealousy. Fear. Guilt. Love. Need. All of them true. None of them enough. Because I wanted him to see what he had done to you, I said. And because I wanted you to choose me when he failed. The room went still. Lila stared at me. You wanted me to hurt. No. The answer came too quickly. Her eyes sharpened. I forced myself to say the rest. I told myself I didn't. I told myself the hurt was already there, and I was only making everyone look at it. But yes, I chose a moment where I knew it would hurt you most. Her lips parted. Suddenly she looked younger than 17. You held me after. I know. You told me you would always choose me. I know. You were the reason I needed to be held. That broke something in me. Not because she was cruel. Because she was right. Yes, I whispered. Lila pressed a hand to her chest like she needed to hold herself together. Was any of it real? I had imagined that question for years. In nightmares. In mirrors. In the silence after she fell asleep beside me. I had prepared apologies, explanations, beautiful little sentences that made my love sound separate from what I had done. They all died before they reached my tongue. Yes, I said. And that is why it is unforgivable. Her face changed. I loved you, I said. I love you now. But I used your love to make myself necessary. I used your pain to punish him. I called it protection because protection sounded cleaner than possession. Lila's eyes filled, but the tears did not fall. You were my mother, she said. I tried to be. No, her voice shook. You don't get to make that smaller. You were. That's what makes this hurt. I covered my mouth with my hand, but it did nothing to hold the grief in. I'm sorry, I said. She laughed once. It was a terrible sound. I don't know what to do with that. You don't have to do anything with it. Do you know what the worst part is? She asked. I shook my head. I still want you to fix it. I could not breathe. Lila wiped her cheek with the back of her hand, angry at the tear for existing. I hate that, she said. I hate that you broke me and some part of me still wants to run to you. I wanted to tell her to run. I wanted to open my arms. I wanted to be forgiven before she even knew whether forgiveness was possible. Instead, I made my hands stay at my sides. Was I ever just Lila to you? She asked. Not proof. Not a way to keep him. Not something you could win or lose. Just me. This time I did cry. Yes, I said. But not soon enough. That answer hurt her. I saw it. But she deserved the truth more than she deserved my comfort. Lila stepped back. One step. Then another. Each one felt like years being taken out of my hands. Adrian was still behind her, careful and devastated. Lila did not run to him. She did not forgive him. She did not forgive me. She only turned away from me. And for the first time since she was a baby, I let her. The consequences came quickly after that. My family withdrew the moment they understood there was no clean way to defend me. Julian stopped calling. Celeste stopped answering. My mother sent one message. You should not speak publicly. Not, are you sorry? Not, did you love the child? Only, do not make this worse where people can see. The settlement was reopened. The money tied to Lila was removed from my control. The house no longer belonged to me in any way that mattered. Decisions about Lila's life were taken out of my hands. But none of that was the punishment. The punishment was Lila seeing enough. No one needed to make her sit through every ugly detail. She saw what mattered. That I had chosen what reached her, what stayed hidden, what hurt, and when. That was when I truly lost her. Not when the lawyers spoke. Not when the house was taken. Not when my family turned away. I lost her when she looked at Adrian and for the first time, did not look back at me for permission. He stood near her, afraid to move too quickly. He had spent years being late. Now he looked terrified of taking even one step before she was ready. Then Lila went to him. Not running. Not healed. Not already forgiving. But she went. Adrian opened his arms only after she reached him. I watched the daughter I had raised find her way back to the father I had kept her from. Wounded by him, wounded by me, but still alive enough to choose. I wanted to speak. I wanted to say I had loved her. I wanted to say I had never smiled when she suffered. I wanted to say every terrible thing I did had grown out of fear, guilt, and a love too broken to be trusted. But every explanation would have been another burden placed in her arms. And I had already made that child carry too much. So I said nothing. I let Adrian take her. I let Lila go. And for the first time in 14 years, I did not reach after what I had already lost. The first night after Lila left, I thought grief would make me shameless. I thought I would call her until she blocked me. I thought I would tear through her room, press her clothes to my face, write pages of explanations I had no right to send. Instead, I slept. Nearly 12 hours. When I woke, the house was too bright. Morning had entered through the curtains as if nothing sacred had been lost there. The hallways were quiet. Her bedroom door was half open. For a long time I stood outside it without going in. Inside there were traces of her everywhere. A ribbon on the dresser. A book on the window seat. A small dent in the pillow where her head had rested the last night she slept under my roof. My roof. Even that phrase no longer belonged to me. I walked through her room without touching anything. I wanted to take something. A bracelet she had made when she was 10. A note. A ribbon. Some proof that she had loved me once, before love became another thing I had damaged. But I had taken enough. So I left everything where it was. Downstairs, the kitchen table was clean. Too clean. No school books. No half-empty glass. No folded letter from Adrian left where she had pretended not to care if I noticed. There was nothing left for me to arrange. Under the grief, something else moved. Relief. I hated the word the moment it came to me. Not peace. I did not deserve anything that clean. Not forgiveness. No one had offered it. Only the sick, quiet relief of no longer having to hold the lie together. No more choosing which letter reached Lila. No more smiling over a truth buried under my tongue. No more calling control protection. No more listening for footsteps in the hall, and wondering if this would be the day everything opened. The lie had ended. And I could breathe. That was the final selfishness. I did not call her. I did not write. I did not send flowers, gifts, explanations, or apologies shaped like hooks. I wrote one letter. Then I folded it and put it in a drawer. In it, I told her I loved her. I told her love did not make what I had done loving. I told her she owed me nothing, not forgiveness, not understanding, not even hatred if hatred became too heavy to carry. To the end I wrote, "The cleanest thing I can give you now is not to reach for you." I never sent it. Maybe one day I will. Maybe I never should. For now, the drawer stays closed. For now, Lila gets to live without carrying my reasons. For now, Adrian gets the chance I once claimed I wanted him to have. And I remain here, in the quiet after the lie, with no one left to convince. Not Lila. Not Adrian. Not my family. Not even myself.